All right. We got here. Hello, Shelley. I'm going to pull you up right after the intro. Right on time. I can see. All right. We're live on Facebook. Go. Got a little soul speak on the ascension that we all share. This unveiling, this apocalypse. You know, all this discussion of what is reality, conspiracy, heresy, truth that's stranger than fiction. Doesn't get any better than this. It's not just time to bring on the apocalypse, it's time to start riding it. It's not going to hurt us. Because one thing's for sure, in our conscious mind and even in our subconscious, if that's what you want to call it, we have always survived. And the reason for that is because we never die. So when it comes to ascension, what else is there to talk about? This ascension, unveiling, is not complicated. It's just a microcosm of the state of our being from any point, from this present moment to any point in our past. And in regard to the past, now we can look back to see, to awaken without the element of linear time. Yeah. Because the wisdom still comes. Because the universe is never late. That means we can take from our past the powerful wisdom of the eternal moments, seen when we unveil the hurts and the blame given and received. You know, we've reached a point where forgiveness will cease to exist. Because perfection did not create forgiveness, but as a path to a higher perfection, a new reflection of itself, of ourselves. Yeah, it's true. It's just not necessary forgiveness, and neither is earth love. So we can stop chasing both right now and all the false securities and failed searches that go with the lofty goals of a moral world. Both the things that they put beyond our reach and the reasons they gave us for not being able to reach them. It's time to re-enter the fold of the immortal, the fold of the I Am soul. How's it going, everybody? We're going to bring our guest on in just a second. As soon as I can, looks like we're having delays with the tech, but looks like we'll be all right. We always are. Got a really good show to start off today. We got 4 shows today. It's going to be a great day, powerful day. Hello, my friend.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. I think I got some Windex in my eye though, and I can't see very good.
Oh no.
It's a pleasure to meet you.
Same. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Absolutely. We've heard a lot of good things about you.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. Chris Rowland, South Africa. Let me just say hello to you. And we are in LA at this point, and we don't know where we're going from here, but good to see everybody. A lot of new faces and old faces. We're going to stick to our typical routine, which is some people might call it amateurish. We go out of order, but don't usually go through any formalities. We just get to know each other on the show with our brothers and sisters present. But I do want to read this bio that we have on Shelley Young. She's the owner of Trinity Esoterics, where she has worked as a hypnotherapist, teacher, writer, spiritual advisor, speaker, trance channel, medium, and internationally recognized channel of Archangel Gabriel for the past 15 years. She's dedicated to raising spiritual awareness in the most straightforward and simple ways possible to help others discover and embrace their own innate wisdom. She is the author of Healing Balm for the Enlightening Soul, a compilation of inspirational messages from Archangel Gabriel, and also offers free daily channeled content that is designed to be practical spirituality that people can easily understand and apply to their own lives. So it sounds like she'll fit right in with all of us weirdos who do all these crazy things that got us into a lot of trouble for a lot of years, but crazy is not crazy anymore. And welcome to the show. Thank you for sharing space with us and honor us with your presence.
Thank you.
It's good to have you here. I know we're going to talk about twin flames, and I guess we're going to talk about Archangel Gabriel. He's that energy, that consciousness has been, I think, an influence in a lot of people's lives, including my own. So that'll be interesting to go into something like that. We haven't done anything like that in quite a while, but it's pretty much up to you where you want to go with it. Maybe you want to tell us just a little bit, because we're obviously we know the stories don't matter anymore. But how did you wake up to this stuff? Were you normal and then became abnormal, or abnormal became normal? No, I'm just. Did you have a wake up experience?
I did. I grew up, I was kind of blessed in the fact that I grew up in a very haunted house. So I grew up just having a physical experience that there was more to life than what you could see. And my grandmother was a psychic that read tea leaves very dramatically. I'm told. I never saw her do it. So, I was brought up in a family that was open-minded about energy and that kind of thing. And so by the time I was 20, I was able to read dice and ruins and meditated and did all of these things. And not much happened for the next 20 years. I was passionate about metaphysical things, but in terms of really growing and opening, there wasn't a lot that was happening despite my efforts until, the proverbial dark night of the soul hit. So I was definitely an awakener from the fetal position on the living room.
Yeah.
Many of us have been. And it was in that moment that, after several months of just everything going completely wrong, that could go wrong, and being incredibly painful. I mean, my whole life just literally crumbled in front of me. I just said, God, you have to take the wheel, because I'm not qualified right now to lead my life. And within 3 weeks of that heartfelt surrender moment, that I literally just stumbled into the magic of surrender by accident. I ended up in Toronto in hypnosis school to become a hypnotherapist that had never been on my radar. And I knew that getting through the crisis I was in my life was going to require a spiritual path to do it. And I became really, really invested in the idea of being able to get my own guidance. I didn't want to have to depend on anybody outside of myself. I wanted to learn how to connect myself. And it was through the cool new tool of hypnosis that I figured out that I could hear Gabriel, and the rest is, what I've been presenting to this day. That's what started it all. So it's been an amazing journey. I never thought I'd have a career listening to the voices in my head, but here we are.
Well, that sounds very similar to a lot of people's stories. I think mine was a little different, because I didn't say take the wheel. I said, get me out of here. If you don't do it, I'm going to do it. No, I'm kidding.
Wow.
No, I'm joking.
Oh, okay.
For the most part, we've all had those moments. I know I have.
We have, for sure we have.
I don't know if we should refer to them as suicidal moments, but they It's about as close as you can get, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's all water under the bridge now. Let's just go briefly into your relationship with Gabriel. A lot of people have had archangel presences and influences in their lives.
Mhm.
Gabriel, I mean, to me, I don't know. I don't profess to know a lot about any of them. But from what I can gather, I just remember a lot of green, healing. I think that was pretty, and I think when I think of or remember about that energy, Archangel Gabriel energy, also music for some reason, music, horns, like I don't know, like how would you see it? Like in the old days when the people, I don't know what they called it, but the man would be out in the town and he'd blow the horn, like to give the news or something like that.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of people relay their stories to me about Gabriel. So what's your connection like, and tell us about it. Fill in the blanks for us.
Well, in my desperation to get any kind of guidance, I started receiving messages from a being that presented himself as being Gabriel. And I knew nothing about archangels at that time, which was really interesting for me. And I was living, as luck would have it, somebody else, my beloved sister-in-law, Kimmy, her life had tanked at the exact same time, and she was looking for the same guidance, and she started receiving messages from Archangel Michael. So we literally had the contact first and then tried to learn about them, which was a really fun process.
So y'all were having a cosmic double date.
We were, yeah. I mean, we look back on it now with so much fun, as it was such a terrible time in our lives, but we see, it was just magic. The discoveries we were going through that really accelerated path together, and it was just so fun and so magical. But so that was kind of the alignment that I had. I didn't know anything about him. So what I've learned has been literally from him directly. Everything that I teach has been taught to me from Gabriel directly. I have my own experiences with him. Some people say he's female. I experience him as male.
Mm-hmm.
I always have. I find that he travels with Mother Mary. So if we remember that in the Bible, it was Gabriel that told her that she was going to give birth to Jesus. So he was the, "Hey, Mary, I have news" guy.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I remember this one lady that I met. I think she was on the show. I can't remember, but it was a long time ago. And she had her first experience like at 4 years old, something like that. And something like traumatic happened in her life, and there was a vacant lot across the street. And she walked over there, knew to walk over there, and then she walked over there for like 3 days, and he was there playing music and talking to her.
Interesting. Yeah, he's just got such an endless supply of wisdom. He's funny. And I'm just so blessed. I'm so blessed that I've been able to connect into that energy. So I don't really associate certain colors with him. If I had to give a color, it would be like a light gray, like a dove gray, or an opalescent white is how I experience it. And it's just that, he's kind of best known as being the communicator angel. And that's kind of, if I had to give myself one label, although I do a lot of different things in the spiritual, department, it would be communicator healer, I think, is really, how I would label myself if I had to have one. And I think that's his gift, is that he offers healing through words.
So this has been going on for 15 years, right?
Yes.
And it's interesting, the deeper we get into this transition, or as the days go by, however you want to put it, our ability to see and explain and experience, everything expands. And I've often wondered, because it's, at least in my mind, nobody really knows anything. I mean, it's but there's so many what you would call psychic, divine episodes, intervention, visitations, apparitions, and so on. But the voice, the guidance that we all get seems to be very unique. And I often wonder, and I ask people this out of total respect, and you just said that basically you would describe yourself as Gabriel, as a communicator, right? And you're probably a comedian too, I would imagine. I'm just kidding. But do you think that's part of your higher self speaking, or the you, me, we, and it? Is it the universe? Is it the face of the universe? Is it your lineage? I mean, I'm just curious. This is just strictly a a question, because I find it very, very intriguing, not just with you, but with myself, my partner, and other people.
Right. I wish I had a definitive answer for that, because it's something that I've pondered a lot. One of the things that Gabriel shared with me is that people that have had a lot of lifetimes on the earth and had a lot of traditional Christian lifetimes often resonate more with the angelics and, that kind of Christed energy stream, if you will, because it's familiar. We've played with it a lot of times, and we've almost forged those relationships long before we had this one, if we're looking at things in a linear way, which I know they're really not, but that's the best way my brain can comprehend it. And so it depends, I think, where we have that affinity or that natural alignment with a stream of consciousness depends on if we've had a lot of lifetimes on Earth, if we've had a lot of lifetimes on other planets instead. And that just kind of explains why we're kind of drawn into one stream more than another. So that's the best way I can explain it. Is his wisdom mine? No, I can't take credit for it, because he surprises me and I learn new things all the time. But there is definitely a meld that starts to happen when you work with an energy all the time. There's a meld that happens between your energy and that being. And I think that's just natural growth and evolution.
I find it interesting too. And, and I often wonder, and I often, because I know in the end, one is one. And that's it, so it's some level to you, me, we, and it. But I agree with you, myself, and a lot of other people I know, they did pick up on angelics, prophets, icons that had some type of impression in this incarnation, I'm sure previous incarnations. But I've always found that a very interesting subject. I just want to have one last question on the Gabriel thing. Does he ever talk about other planets and other universes and other solar systems, galaxies, and that type of thing?
Not specifically, but that's not really where my interest lies. I think it's just that I would blame the channel for that, because I don't really ask the questions specific to that. I would say that our forte, Gabriel and I working together, we seem to have an ability to present really hard spiritual concepts in a way that's easy to understand. That's always been, I think, our strength. He offers wonderful analogies, and we strive to create spirituality that's practical spirituality that you can use in your day-to-day life. So I think that's kind of the path that we're walking of service. And there's a lot of people that are great at exploring, all of these different realms, but I'm not one of them.
No, I just was curious. And so can you give us an example of some practical spirituality, simplistic spirituality, or an example of one of his analogies?
Oh, one of his analogies. This is the one that sometimes I was just discussing this with a friend yesterday. Sometimes I get overwhelmed wondering about how we're all one, but how I can have personal preferences. And as an individual, if I understand that we're all one, how can I prefer to be around certain people or certain energies? I don't want to be exclusive. I understand that we're all one, but I'm trying to find that balance of honoring unity consciousness, but also honoring my human expression. And so the analogy that Gabriel's always given me about that just makes it really easy for me to understand is he talks about a buffet. If you go to a buffet, you see the purpose of every food offering there, but it doesn't mean that you have to put everything on your plate. You still get to have your preferences, but you're not going to yell at other people for having tomatoes on their plate if you don't like them. And so for me, that's just a really easy analogy for me to understand that, it's absolutely okay for me to have my plate and my preferences and honor that it serves the whole. There's something there for everybody. So that's just a simple example.
Yeah, that works. And so how did you get into the twin flame part of it? So a triple question. How did you get into the twin flame part of it? Does it involve Gabriel? or is it separate in terms of what you pull down from infinite intelligence? And are you in a divine union?
Yes, I am. Before my awakening, before the fetal position on the living room floor moment, I had been exploring my spirituality, and there was a channel I lived up in Northern Ontario, Canada, and there was a channel up there that I would see every once in a while. And he was the first one that presented twin flame information to me. And he said, back in 1999, you're going to meet your twin flame. And actually said that somebody that I was dating at that time was my twin flame. And with my wisdom looking back, it clearly wasn't. But I didn't know anything about twin flame. I'd never even heard the term before. So I had a really bad experience, trying to navigate a relationship. There's no way I would have been even ready to handle a twin flame relationship at that time. So I don't know if the channel maybe just brought forth information 20 years before I needed it. I'm not sure what happened there, but it just left a really bad taste in my mouth. It was a really bad experience. And so I actually was somebody who really disliked the whole twin flame topic, to be quite frank with you. I thought a lot of people twisted the meanings and to separate themselves or seem like their relationship was better than everybody else's and to excuse bad behavior. And I just didn't like all of the stuff that came with the twin flame topic. So it was one of those things I would kind of roll my eyes at when I'd hear about it. Fast forward to February 2015, and I meet somebody and it behaves exactly like a twin flame. So, I ended up having the experience, even though I didn't believe in it. It's kind of like not believing in ghosts and then seeing one. And so we've been going through that entire process. Thankfully, now I have, my own guidance that's really helped me figure out how to navigate it. And I think that over the past 4.5 years, that I've develop some strategies that make it a little bit easier to navigate, whether you're in union or in separation.
Yeah. And yeah, it is. And I remember, of course, I've been involved almost 4 years in about a week. Yay. And I do remember, first of all, I didn't know anything about it. I still don't really identify with the twin flame label.
Same.
But the labels are labels, and yeah, I get what you're saying, and most people understand by now that it's been used in so many different ways, kind of like I love you, earth love, that type of thing, so that's okay. But what I'm getting at is I do remember I do remember seeing some people out there, and I haven't seen much of this lately, but a year or two ago, you would see it all the time. Every day you would see people talking about the runner, and they talk about this phase and that phase and this phase and that phase. And I don't really know that I've gone through any phases. I know we've gone through elevations. I've done a lot of personal elevating due to my proximity to the divine feminine. But so for you, was it like a laboratory case study? I mean, I don't mean to say that in an insensitive way, but I mean, you had this knowledge coming in, but you were also experiencing it. So was it verbatim? Was it mirroring what you were receiving?
No, I think that there was some higher information that I received, but a lot of it was just me schlepping around the best that I could and figuring out for myself as a human being what was bringing me comfort, what worked with this relationship, and how to approach it. So I think that I had a good base of spiritual knowledge under my belt before it happened. So some of the most important aspects to me in navigating, a twin flame, and I really am all about releasing that label, because I think it puts a lot of pressure on your relationship that's unnecessary. I prefer soul connections. They're all going to behave the same anyways.
Yeah.
But the most important things is learning how, you got to follow your heart. This is not going to behave like a normal relationship. So you have to follow your heart. Acceptance is a huge aspect. This is moving into unconditional love, and it's relentless self-responsibility. It's, knowing that it's about getting comfortable and not having guarantees and allowing the unfoldment. So I would say that all of the spiritual, learning that I had done on my path prepared me to handle some of the pressures of the twin flame relationship. But I cannot sit here and pretend that I did it all gracefully, because I did not.
Oh, wait a minute. Wait a second. I thought it was all fluffy love and light shit.
God, no.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the and I love what you said, because what it does is, well, you really brought it down to what it is, and at least in my opinion, and that is, it just accentuates what we call this ascension. It accentuates the light cast upon the shadows of the individual, because you've got this incredible mirror in front of you, which brings certain challenges to the human aspect, and that's not always easy. But you've been doing this now for, same time period, 4 years.
Yeah, we're at about 4.5 years now. It
So-
took us about 2 years before we kind of got to a little bit more of a stable place where we weren't super activating each other and going through, time apart, separations, and being triggered, and all the ugly stuff that can come with it.
Yeah. Did you, and just for the sake of my own curiosity, I just want to know, have you ever let him go? Has he ever let you go? And how many times have you just said, it's done, I'm done, I'm out of here?
I think every time you think it's done, it's not.
Yeah.
You find out that it's not. Yeah, there's plenty of times. I mean, usually when you're drawing a hard line like that, it's because you're triggered and you're trying to get some semblance of control back. But yeah, we've gone through separations. I mean, we lived in different countries when we met in the first place, so
Really?
we have physical separation. And we've also had, times where things went really bad. But the best way that I have been able to understand what's going on is what Gabriel's taught me about it, which is that it is first and foremost an energetic activation. And it's something that we need to integrate. So if I can step back and look at it as an energetic process, that allows me to not take it personally. And I think that that's so key. You are literally integrating a soul fragment that is as big as you are. And so, we're understanding energy so much better, particularly over the last couple of years, that we understand, okay, we get these big influxes. We have to integrate. When we're integrating energy, we can't take on anything else.
Yeah.
When you start to see that when people are triggered, it's because they're at energetic max and they have to get into their own space in order to activate. It's not personal anymore.
Yeah.
And you can step back and allow them what they need in order to do that, which, then allows you to kind of enter into a dance. But what I think is so unique, and I get asked all the time, how do I know if it's a twin flame or a soul connection? And to me, the biggest indicator is the pull. You've got that energetic pull that's always drawing you back to that person, even when you don't want it. And that's the key.
Yes.
Any other relationship on the planet, if you want to get away from somebody and you get away from them, you are relieved. With a twin flame or soul connection, you're going to get out of their space. You'll feel relief for a minute, and then that pull is going to come back in until you get so uncomfortable that you have to reach out again. And I think that's what makes us do the work. Yeah. It's being drawn back into it time and time again.
Yeah, you don't really have a choice. There's a higher power, or our higher powers maybe, or at hand. But once Morgan came in the door, she never left. I mean, even if I said, hung up on her quite a few times and went for walks, my spirit walks, she was always right there. I mean, literally, like every decision I made, even we wouldn't talk for 2-3 weeks, and I couldn't. Yeah, so that's another great pinpoint description of what this is all about. Now, now you said you were in separate countries, and I don't know where you live, and that's none of my business. But do you guys live together?
Yeah, we're married now.
Oh, you're married. Beautiful, beautiful.
We're married now. So,
when did you get married? I'm just curious.
Last June.
Oh my God, we got married last June. What is going on here? You both met in 2015.
What day did you get married on?
June the 12th.
Oh, we got married on the 11th.
You can't make this shift up, man. You just can't make this up. So, you know, I don't know if you've watched too many of the shows, but I'll pretty much ask you anything. I'm just kidding. But I am very curious about something that's come to the surface. We were talking the other day, and it's actually been there since the first time we met each other, which is intimacy. And when I'm talking intimacy, I'm not just talking, you know, what our old perception of intimacy was.
Right.
But it's ramped up as time's gone on, and you know, this sacred sexual power, energy, vibration is extraordinary. It's absolutely extraordinary. So, how's that going?
Well, I mean, it's really it's unlike any experience that you'll ever have, and I think that, you know, the first time that you're intimate, it's such a profound act because it actually starts, you know, the meld of all of your different energy bodies. So there's an actual huge energetic shift that happens from that intimacy.
Yeah.
And the first time that I was intimate with my partner, I'd gone to visit him. He was in Michigan. I was up in Northern Ontario. We now live in Florida, Southwest Florida. And
wait a second. This is another one.
oh no.
Where in Southwest Florida are you?
We're in Port Charlotte.
Okay, so we'll be in Sarasota in January.
Okay, so like not even an hour away.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Sarasota. If I had my way, I'd be living in Sarasota. I love it there.
Yeah.
I mean, I love where I am right now, but now that I've been here and explored the area, I've got my eye on Sarasota now. We go all the time.
So what happened the first time? What happened?
Well, what happened to him was he had some really strange energetic things happen. Where at one point he woke up and he was literally between dimensions and he didn't know who he was. And it was terrifying for him because he hadn't really worked a lot with spirituality and energy before. So he had no reference point to what was happening. He also had a bleed through of a past life, where he had a past life memory of seeing me up on a cliff and not being able to get to me. So, you know, there were a lot of, you know, so much expansion that happens within that first coming together. And usually shortly after that, the shift hits the fan, if you will.
No shift, man, no shift. Oh, yeah.
You know, it triggered, you know, basically anything that you need to work on is going to come up. Now, one of the things that I found our intimacy is just unlike any other relationship that I've ever had.
I often say, if you take a picture, you might see something that looks familiar, like when you would think of sex or intimacy. But if you took a video, chances are it's not going to look anything like it.
Okay.
I don't know if that's where what you've experienced, but I already can tell because of the other synchronicities and a couple of things that you mentioned that you probably had some of the same type of experiences. Obviously, he has. And what I'm talking about, real quick, and then you can take it over, is first of all, we had physical herioscamos, physical and non-physical integration that went the first time went on for like 4 hours. And there was no movement, there was no sweat, it was not tantric. And with that, which kind of encapsulates everything that I wanted to bring to your attention, we had before, during, and after interdimensional experiences, shape-shifting, certainly downloads, massive shifts. And none of the episodes are ever the same. You know, the intimacy is always something different, including, you know, me having 200, what I can only describe as female orgasms over about an hour, to the melding that you're talking about, where the body's literally, you don't know where one starts and one stops. So have you had those type of experiences? Can you elaborate a little bit on it? And what has been the result, or have you seen any power opened up in either one of you or both of you as a result of these?
Oh gosh, I don't even know how you could put it into words, to be honest with you, because the expansion that occurs is just so vast. And it's expansion in so many ways. It's expansion in terms of how you're expressing love in the physical. It's literally feeling like you need the other person next to you in a non-needy, gross, codependent way, not in that way, but just feeling that, I've been on a beach and my husband's been up on a bluff not far away and literally missing his presence because it's almost like a part of you. If I had to go up to Canada, driving away about an hour out, I just felt so wrong because your energy is just so completely melded. I haven't had any shape shifting. I haven't experienced that. But one thing that I have found over the last few months, because the last few months I found very energetically challenging, was almost sometimes not even being able to handle the connection that happens with sex because I'm busy integrating other energies, and that becomes just too overwhelming. So, as connected as it is, sometimes it's just like, okay, you're just a little bit too much for me right now. I can't, my body just literally cannot withstand this.
Yeah.
So the power of it just never seems to let up, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up too, because I think that's important. Is that like we went through a few weeks where we didn't have any problem.
Yeah,
We just weren't going to be intimate to that degree.
that's right.
We still lay together, we still caress, we still put our palms together every night, but for whatever reason, we recognize that, hey, this just isn't happening right now. And I think what you said probably had something to do with it because there was a lot of work going on.
Absolutely.
There was a lot of stuff going on, during that time.
Yeah. So, I mean, it always goes back to energetics in one way or another, I think, where you're busy integrating something and just that's a little bit too much right now. So what I really respect and love so much about my partner is that, I can be in a space where I can say, oof, that energy is just too much right now. I just need to be in my own space. And we're to the point now where he can do that without being triggered. That doesn't trigger him. He just understands the energetics of it. And I think that, if people are trying to navigate a twin flame or a soul connection without the understanding of what the energetics are doing, I mean, the minuscule amount that we can understand, because I'm sure it's so much more vast than what anyone's discovered. But if you understand that it's an energetic process, you can stay in a space that can allow the other one the room to do what they need to do without taking it personally. You won't get triggered.
Yeah. I think that's another great point. Yes, I'm digging this conversation. Just as another question towards expansion and informing people that are headed there, because I think a lot of people are, if we're not all heading there, energetically at least, is the having the time alone. I think is one good point I just wanted to reiterate. But also, you were talking about triggers and in and around intimacy and really the relationship as a whole. But my question is going to where we came from, where we are, where we're going. And so many of us at our age have had a lot of history, right? We both were lucky because we both chose celibacy before we met each other.
Oh, okay. I have to interject. I love this. This is something that I am seeing. Because now that I present about twin flames and teach about twin flames, I'm hearing, I'm working with so many twin flame couples. And that seems to be an indicator that I'm seeing in more cases than not, that people have to kind of hung up the 3D relationship and taken a time for themselves, almost to debrief what they thought relationships were, to get straight within themselves. And that seems to be one of the very common preparations that people go through before they connect with the twin. So one of the things that Gabriel explains to me is that people will, as soon as people shift into a vibrational range that makes that union sustainable, is when they create the intersection points. And I think the time out that we've taken from relationships and moved into celibacy is what allows us to kind of evolve to the point of hitting that vibrational range. So it's fascinating to me that you've done that. I had been out of relationship and celibate for many years before I met mine.
Yeah. That's where my question. I'm glad you answered it, because I was getting multiple streaming coming in, but yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to get addressed, and I wanted to get your opinion on because we've talked, Morgan and I have talked about this, and I talked about it. I mean, it was over a year and a week after we got married before we actually technically consummated it in the human's eyes, anyway. But so it was a very gradual, very, very slow. There is no hurry, and still isn't. It's not. We've all been there. I mean, I can speak for myself for sure that in these past codependent frequency relationships, sex was the way out. Sex was the excuse. Sex was the way you let the pressure out, or whatever, or try to bring into. Well, you know what I mean.
Or the reassurance. The reassurance.
Yeah. It was. But I mean, I guess what I'm getting at, it was an absolute priority in the old 3D relationship, and now it's not, because we are energy, conscious energy. But I guess what I was going to ask you, and this is for people that are going to be headed into this or headed into it now, because it's come up with some of the couples we've talked to, where they came out of the chute having physical intimacy. And I don't know where that goes, and I know there's more than one path, but I guess what I'm getting at least from my perspective, and really Morgan's perspective, is we don't even know how we could have done that. Like, we've had to still unlearn things, primarily me, have had to learn, how deep performance goes, how deep all this conditioning went in programming, to deprogram and decondition and find that innocence and that genuine alignment of two people. And I just think it's fascinating. I don't think I could have done it coming in the door, in the traditional way. So are you seeing more couples that are doing this? Are more couples that are coming in having sex? The ones that do, are they abstaining after they get to a certain point? I mean,
well, I can speak for myself that we had, because we met online. I mean, we spent 5 months getting to know each other before that was even on the table. Yeah, I mean, we weren't in the same place anyways, but it would have been completely overwhelming if we did that immediately. I think that would have had a real kind of repellent spin-off effect, because it would have just been energetic overwhelm.
yeah.
When we first met, I would literally get energetically hungover from simply texting.
Yeah.
Where you could just feel, oh my gosh, this is shifting my energy so much. You were dehydrated and all of those typical energy hangover signs. What I think is that the majority of twins that are physically intimate are planning on being together in the physical this time around.
Yeah.
Because I think that is what starts the beginning of the physical meld and the meld of all of the different subtle energy bodies.
Yeah. And that would make sense too, that, now you think about it, like you were talking about energetically, then they're those that go into celibacy as an individual, in their own, by their own choice, clear the vessel, and it makes room for, that makes sense. Yeah.
It's just it's fascinating. I love hearing all of these different stories, because now I'm starting to see some patterns emerging. I mean, every set of twins is unique, of course, but I'm starting to see common threads that are just really interesting to observe.
Yeah. And I can I don't know how deep we want to go on this. It could get pretty adult, no, I'm kidding. One of the things too I've been curious about is, because I made the comment the other day that we've had what I was saying are misleading sacred sex a dozen times. And what I meant by that was from the point that we had this physical herioscamos, which was just absolutely incredible. I mean, it's just, I've talked about it and I don't want to go back into it. But then she said to me, well, actually, this has happened since the first night. I'm like, yeah, you're right. even a caress, even the touching of the hands or the face or whatever the case may be. So, you know, one of the things I've wondered about is we've had quite a few times a higher aspect of herself has come in, and then and occasionally mine would initiate it a couple of times. You know, I'd have one come in, but we have like a ritual. There'll be like a ritual involved. And sometimes the clothes are off, and sometimes you're doing this and you're doing that. And I'm not talking about sexual stuff, really. I'm just talking about, you know, to the human people. I mean, if there was a crowd, they might have thrown us in jail or something. I don't know. But that, to me, as I sit here and think about it, there's that sacred sexual vibration and energy was very present, if not even more present, during these episodes like that we've had. Does that ring a bell with you? Does that hold true with you?
I can't say that I've really experienced that as you would describe it, but I can tell you that I had, you know, even just from seeing pictures of him, you know, almost seeing a picture and having a yearning to be with him sexually, not because he just turned me on by the way he looked, but because it was about that desire to be in that energy. It was bigger than sexual desire, if that makes sense. And that had never happened. And one of the things that I recognized right at the very beginning was that I could feel him. I could feel his moods. I could sometimes feel what he would eat. I could feel when he was awake or asleep. It was almost like an instantaneous reminder, and then we're so clued into what this other person is doing. So that really intense telepathy and that deep connection, it shows up right away. I guess it just shows up different for different people.
Did you recognize his voice, and if so, did it have any effect on you when you first heard it?
No, it was not his voice, but I don't even know if I should say this because this is really
I think you should.
where I could see him either in dreams or in meditations before we met, and I couldn't see his face. I didn't know his face, but I could see his hands. My husband has very large hands. They're very distinctive, and I could see his genitals. So it was really interesting when I met him, and it was like, oh, I've seen that before. It was really cool.
You weren't talking about his hands, I don't guess.
Yeah. So it was, you know, that was an interesting thing. It was, you know, there were bits and pieces of him that I was picking up that were very distinct to him, that were, you know, great indicators when I finally, you know, got there in the physical, that I had gotten it exactly right.
And we've all had sexual trauma. You know, I mean, I think sexual trauma, by this perfect design that we created in this room, was the that was the heart of it, wasn't it? I mean, that was the heart of it. They don't call it the root for nothing. I mean, if it was compressed or constricted there, then everything else flows from there. But my question is, in terms of, we'll just use the term sexual healing or sexual trauma healing, or whatever you want to call it, and you get my drift. How is there a direct relationship between developing the intimacy of the sacred sexual vibration and the healing? Is it something that you have to be very conscious of, or does it clear by its own frequency?
Oh, that's a great question. We both have backgrounds with some abuse in it. We both, you know, which definitely got triggered. I know for sure I definitely got very, very triggered. By the end of the first weekend with him, I was super triggered. So I do think that what happens, regardless of where your wound is at or what is looking for healing, when you get around your twin or soul connection, there's going to be that amazing moment of, oh, there you are. I recognize you. This is amazing. The wonder and glory of being reunited. And then every last thing in you that needs healing is going to come up in the most spectacular ways. So, you know, having an experience with safe, you know, I think it's about learning how to be safe with intimacy, and intimacy can be very many different things.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't put that just to sexuality. I would put it to intimacy right across the board.
Well, of course. Yeah. Yeah.
Learning how to be in an open heart space with somebody, and in a level that we haven't done before.
Did you or do you ever feel like, you know, when you get to that point of intimacy, and you know, let's just say, where this is Soulogy. I don't know why I'm mincing my words. You get naked, you lay in bed. You don't go into the old routines that we came out of in that old 3D paradigm. Do you ever get there just and you're like a little kid, like, you know, what do we do? I don't mean it that way, but I mean it's that innocent. Do you ever get to that point?
Yeah, I love that you mentioned innocence, because I think that's what we're trying to heal back to, aren't we? We're trying to heal back to that innocent, the innocence that allows you to be open-hearted again.
Yeah.
And it was so interesting because, you know, I was talking to Corey the other night, and I was saying, you know, sometimes you feel like you can't love enough, because sometimes I feel like I can't love enough, and sometimes I feel like I can't receive love enough.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think that's all part and parcel of the healing of the wounds and the trauma that we've been through, and just learning how to find that safe connection. And I think that ultimately that pull that we discussed, how we keep coming back into it over and over again, I think in a sense that almost allows us, if we understand what's going on, to find the safe connection where it can be, I can be a hot mess one day, or he can be a hot mess one day, but we're always going to come back into that reconnection.
Yeah.
So it kind of sucks when you don't want it, but it's a beautiful, I call it the horror and the beauty of it, because when you don't want that pull, it sucks.
Yeah.
But when, you know, when it's working for you, it's such a beautiful thing.
And yeah, and so it's a better safe than sorry kind of thing is what we found. So like you know, there's the programming stuff, the performance stuff went so deep, and we've actually done a pretty good job with it. I mean, I had to do a lot of work on it, but it wasn't a big obstacle. But so if there's a close call, in other words, like, do we have the right energy, no matter how aroused we might be? If one or both says, hey, better safe than sorry, let's not go back into that old frequency, because that's a powerful frequency that all of us had to pull ourselves out of, and are pulling ourselves out of.
You know, what I've observed, and I don't know if you've observed this as well, I haven't asked anybody else about it, but what I've found is that past trauma.
She's giving me a thumbs up. She just walked in the door.
Oh.
I thought I was in trouble. Shit.
Oh, no. Past trauma, you know, it's almost like I feel, you know, Gabriel's talked a lot about us being, you know, in a review process where we're wrapping up the first phase of our incarnation, and it's becoming almost like past life. So what I'm finding is that the things that are coming up, like memories, or, you know, just little awarenesses that we have of old wounds or old things that happened to us, I'm finding that it's going backwards from most recently to childhood. So I'm noticing that we're kind of healing back to 0 point, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And
you know what? That really hit home with me. I and not just, but God, how do you explain it? How do you explain that? Okay, so you're an individual, he's an individual, and it's always about what's best for you. You know, this is ascension. Yeah. But there's also this other thing, and you're not. It's like the cosmic duality of the Trinity, you know. But what I'm saying is yeah, well, you know, let me put it a different way, because again, the thing about the sacred sexual vibration is that it is a core, the root of the energy that actually is applicable across the board, right? You know, in all ways. What do you do when you guys are out of alignment? How does that affect you, and what processes do you use, or how easy is it, and how difficult was it? You know what I mean?
Right. In life in general, or you mean sexual?
Just it's all the same thing, right?
Yeah, I agree. I tend to be I'm more of a reactor. I'm more of a, okay, I'm getting out of here so I can get in my own space. That's still kind of my go-to.
Uh-huh.
although I'm getting better at talking about it, I find he just holds the space. He's just, and for all of the people that are listening right now and they're in a runner, runner chaser, which we discussed is just an energetic process of integration. If you feel like you're the one that's had to have all of the patience and everything because your twin is over there being a hot mess and they're super triggered and they're just not getting it together, let me tell you that letting them go first is going to come back and serve you well, because they'll have gone through it. And when you're triggered, they can hold the space for you. You will have your time where it all balances out, I promise.
Everything does, doesn't it?
It does. So, he's really good. I love that he just kind of holds the space. He doesn't get reactive. He doesn't push.
Yeah.
And so for my technique is to just talk about it. And, because he's not pushing, it just kind of gets it off my chest and I shift into a healthier space. And then we reconnect.
That ascension adage of "it's never them, it's always me" is taken to a totally different level in these relationships.
It is relentless self-responsibility.
Isn't it?
I start getting judgy on him, like he should be doing this and he should be doing that. I've learned that it's never about him. It's always about me.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. It takes that saying goes to a whole different level, new math, exponential opportunity. But it really does, because you know what the fascinating thing to me about the relationship is the opportunities presented for expansion.
Yes.
And at the same time, in that beautiful universal paradoxical teaching of the universe, the big opportunities are these little bitty seeds that I can't see until I start thinking it's her. And I don't even have to have these conversations with her. I probably did months ago or a year or two ago, but now I can just have them, and they're very quick. But it's always amazes me is how this little kernel, this little seed was so subtly planted in me, and yet here's the best mirror I could have, and I'm still at the level of projecting until I become aware.
Well, it's just a process of energetic refinement, no matter how you look at it. And another thing that I'd really like to mention while we're on this topic is so many people think that, they put so much pressure on their relationship. We've got to get to union so we can be of service. And what
does that mean, by the way? I've heard people say that we got to get to union. What does that mean?
It means that they're, living life together in a way.
Okay, go ahead.
So they have to hurry up and get there so they can be of service. And I'm telling you, every bit from the first intersection is being of service.
Yeah.
Because, for every piece that you're integrating and healing, you're serving the whole. That is profound service. And you are creating new templates for deeper, higher vibrational relationships on the planet. So don't ever think that you're not doing it because you're in whatever phase you're in. It's all moving forward.
When we would run into, how the ascension is, it's the road, the yellow brick road isn't always a yellow brick road. It looks like a hazy rainbow. And so, but when we used to get these confusing points, sometimes we would just look at each other and say, well, all we got to do is love each other.
Yeah.
I mean, if we do that, and even that's been our direction from our team, has been be together, love each other when you're together, which is the yummy part, and then broadcast. And the rest will take care of itself. And so on that note, and people talk about, and I've mentioned this before in a couple of shows, I remember when we got to Hawaii, into our first home ever, and our only one so far. It was fun while it lasted. There was a Rumi book, and we opened the book up, and there was the story she read just by chance, and it talked about, Rumi was talking about two people laying together, two people being intimate, and that it creates a third energy that may or may not be able to be seen, that in the cosmos creates a third energy, and it's a very serious thing, and it was a very well done piece that he did. But my question is, are you aware of what your third energy that's been created by the two of you is, and can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I'm aware of it. I'm definitely aware of it. And it's definitely much larger than the sum of our two energies would be individually, 1 + 1 = 2. It's way more than that, obviously.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah.
But other than that, no, I don't know. I'm just content in it's almost like the unfoldment. You can't predict anything. It's almost like the second you try and put it into a concept that your brain can understand, it expands again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I know it's there. I know that it has an effect on people as well. But I haven't, to be perfectly honest with you, I haven't really explored it, but that would be a cool thing to ask about.
Do you find that people that do, because we've noticed that too, it affects people, and that's interesting sometimes because it's not always. it's pretty,
Yeah, some people get triggered by
yeah,
it.
it's pretty. Yeah, I know, but and that's really smoothed out, for us. And I don't know if that has to do with the whole thing that's happening for everybody. But so have you noticed that the friends, acquaintances, people that have been exposed to you, have you noticed any of them have then after that gotten into a relationship like this?
Yes.
Yeah, we have too. We've noticed that too.
In fact, one of my greatest supports, didn't understand the whole twin flame thing, and with all of kind of the chaos that most of us go through in the early stages with the in and the out and all of the emotions and all the triggers and everything, she was kind of in a space where she was like, oh, I don't know, Shell. And, a year later, what happens to her? Doesn't she meet her twin? And she's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't understand. How are you going through that all on your own? And, it's back to the heart. No matter how you slice it, it's always coming back to the heart. You can't navigate it through your brain. You just can't.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing it teaches you too, I think, which really sounds strange because, for our entire life, it was always the fairy tale was, you find the one and you live happily ever after. And then of course we had the creation of the marriage certificate and all the stuff that went on here. But what I'm talking about is detachment, letting go. There's a part of me that knows who she was when I met her, that has always known her, that knows that and I don't get into a split soul, and it doesn't even register to me that way. I just know. I just know. It's like a right hand, left hand thing for me. And this is just me. I'm not even speaking for her. But on the other hand, I also know that if this new energy, if we want to call it that, that's coming in, I'm talking 5D or whatever people want to call it. One thing about it that I do know is there is no guarantee. Right. They don't put $1 million in your bank and say, okay, go and be a light worker now and open up a spiritual center. They say, go open up a spiritual center and sell everything you have and hitchhike down over to, this mountain, and, we'll take care of you when you get there. So it's really kind of, but again, this is, like you said, you can't compute it through the mind. It is it's a heart type of wisdom. And,
it's an unfoldment. And more than that, for many of us, I think the challenge is, how do you be connected and not be codependent?
Yeah.
Because most of us have struggled with codependency in one form or another. So how can you move into healthy connection or honored connection, if you will?
Yeah. Well, I think one way is, of course, to me, we're writing this template, all the templates involved with this expansion. But it's one of those things where if you're going to hold the bar of soap, and you're either going to hold it too tight or too loose, be on the side of holding it too tight. So guard your space. I think that's in other words, to be on that side of it if you're going to be out of alignment, not to be soft and go back into the old.
And there's that whole level of acceptance. It's just a level of acceptance that I think, if we understand that it's a bit of a dance, particularly at the beginning, And even once you're in union, you're still kind of in and out. It's just not as broad and extreme as it used to be.
Yeah.
There's still a constancy that you can create in your love, and it's really getting away from that, you know, conditional love model where you're going to behave a certain way or I'm going to withdraw my love. You know, that's coming up for healing guaranteed. You know, it's about, okay, the energies aren't supporting us and being together in the physical right now, so I'm going to shift into the way that I can love you that is supported, which is energetically.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think that we can create that constancy if we just allow ourselves to flow and move with whatever is being supported at any given time.
Yeah. And yeah. This is good stuff. We should do a part 2 on this, because we're not even, that's another thing about the sacred sexual vibration, which I think is a copy of the whole thing. And we feel like we're just in nursery school. Like, you know, we haven't even begun to know. We don't know anything, you know. Yeah, right? I mean, it's talk about real-time intel. You know, you go to bed tonight and it's you think you know, you got the greatest epiphanies in the world, and you know, the cosmos open, the ceiling disappears, the walls disappear, you're in the middle of the cosmos and getting all this high-level information. You wake up the next day and it's back to ABCs and connect the dots, right? So have you noticed that, you know, have you noticed from the intimacy of any kind, the creative energies available, produced from them, available to be directed, that type of thing?
We haven't done a lot of that, but admittedly, my guy is not as much into spirituality as I am. So we haven't really delved.
That's interesting. That's it. And that, okay, that would be my next question. Is he camera shy?
No, he's not camera shy, but he's not, he actually had a really bad accident a couple of years in, and he's had a traumatic brain injury.
Wow.
So he's actually having a little bit of trouble talking, you know, in just conversation is a little bit challenged still.
Yeah.
But you know what, that was also part of our journey.
Yeah.
You know, because that really slowed him down. But he's one of these people that wouldn't necessarily, you know, explain all the spiritual things the way that I would, but he lives them. You know, he holds space beautifully. He accepts me for who I am. He holds that unconditional love. He practices gratitude. So he's like one of these people that just applies it without needing to know all of the ins and outs of it, which is really beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, Gabriel said to me the other day, I was reading for somebody who was in a twin flame relationship. And what he said was, you know, we think that union is the end of the road. And he said, union is just the beginning.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
So let's write it for all it is. It definitely is a big marker for, I think, yeah, for the next leap, whatever that may be. But let's enjoy this one. We should do a part 2. I want to thank you for sharing space with us and honoring us with your presence. If I didn't have my phone going out and my computer going out right now and another show coming up, I'd try to talk you into staying longer. Thank you for sharing everything so personal. That's I think that's the best we can do as far as offering anything to people is talking about our own experience. So I just want to say thanks for that, because I know that's not easy. And best to you and him, and always an open invitation. And yeah,
thank you. It was so wonderful connecting with you today.
We'll do it again if you're interested.
I'd love to.
All right. You take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.